Well, here we go. I'm out today to ride two bikes, the new 1250 GS, and this is the exclusive version, which essentially is the TE with a bit of a special paint job, as I understand it. Extra shiny, although Josh has taken this around Wales 350 miles over the weekend, so it looks like a proper GS should look, which is muddy and not gleaming. So I'm going to ride this. I'm going to ride it back to back against the S1000XR, the 4-cylinder, just as a comparison really. I got some comments on the when I rode out across the Cotswolds about maybe I ought to try something different than the RT. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm interested in the 1250 RT particularly. So this will certainly be a bit of a lead in terms of understanding what the engine's all about. Okay, so today, as usual, isn't going to be a technical review. It's going to be just impressions, feelings. I'm not an expert. I don't portray myself as an expert, and I'll explain more about that in a couple of minutes' time. But it's just a bit of fun, a bit of relaxation, but also just to get the impressions really for someone who's a back-to biker like me, how this bike actually feels in comparison with the S1000XR. So let's get on and let's see what she can do. Very unusually for me on test ride day, it's not lashing it down. Okay, it is cool and breezy, but certainly very acceptable actually. A lovely sunny day to be riding a new bike. So as I say, Josh has very kindly lent me his bike, and I'm going to ride this back to back with the S1000XR. So we'll get the roundabout out of the way. We're going to head south from Northampton down towards Bedford. So a strange time for me. I've just passed my advanced motorcycling test with the Institute of Advanced Motorcyclists, so still trying to assimilate all that and get used to a new bike. So the initial impression is actually, even just this first couple hundred yards really, you can tell the engine feels different with this new shift cam on. So let's just establish some ground rules, and I won't be doing a deeply technical review today. I've noticed on YouTube already there are a lot of those around. There's people who know more about that than I do, the better riders than me, the professionals and the experienced amateurs like myself, maybe certainly more experienced than myself. So as always with my reviews, it's an impression, and it's, I guess, of particular interest to let's say gentlemen, maybe ladies of a certain age. I came back to biking about a year, well almost exactly a year ago actually, and for 9 months I've worked very hard at my skills. Well, 12 months actually, but 9 months that's been highly structured. So the point is, it can be done. So if you, like me, are thinking about coming back to a bike, then you know, you can do it. As long as you've got the discipline. My advice is get yourself some advanced tuition, and also I would strongly advise getting a mentor as well. Anyway, I'm not talking about advanced riding today, more want to talk about the bike. So yeah, so the aim today is to compare the 1250 GS with the S1000XR. Now I know they're chalk and cheese, but BMW classify them both as an adventure bike. So as I say, it's going to be impressions really, how they feel. Okay, they're both tall bikes, but obviously one has a different set of heart and lungs than the other one does. When you jump on a GS, it's always very easy to ride. Okay, so let's go rural, shall we? So, as I said, this bike has the shift cam, which is, as I understand it, is operated by an electrical actuator, engine management system, which can open valves at sort of slightly different times than the sort of standard 1200 model. And the net result of that, essentially, as I can already feel, is a smoother band of power, actually. So. Okay, lifesaver to move position. And this is the route I took when I test rode the R9. It was a lot wetter that day. Beware Audi drivers wearing baseball caps. Yeah, so as Josh said, the bike I'm riding is what's known as the exclusive version, which I think at the moment is probably just about the most top spec bike you can actually buy. They don't yet know when the GS Adventure is going to be released. They themselves haven't been told about that. The RT1250, they believe they're going to get a demo model in Wollaston's this month in November. And the news is as well, interestingly from Josh, is that these things are literally selling like hotcakes. They, according to him, they can't get enough of them at the moment. So, and I believe him as well. So it does seem like these are flying off the shelves. As you'll know, if you've checked out the BMW website, there are about I think there's about 5. Let's keep off that gravel. There are 5 GS models from the sort of basic through the rally. I'm not going to list them all off because you can look them up yourself, but there are essentially options there for everybody, price-wise and spec-wise. So it being a little chilly today, I've got the heated grips on. I don't think you can get the GS with a heated seat, although I think there are some aftermarket options that you can specify that. But it feels absolutely great, I've got to say. It's you know, for me, as you'll know if you've sort of followed my story, that you know, I've been working very hard on the roadcraft, but I still find the handling the RT challenging because it's a 265 kilo machine. It's a big lump, basically. Once it's moving, it's fine, but slow speeds, you know, you've really got to think about what you're doing. So we'll get the feel of the machine. And straight into a 30. Positioning for view. I do like the mirrors on the GS. They give such a comprehensive rear view on the way that I think the RT sort of fails on that. I was out yesterday on Sunday just visiting into the IM to pick up my badge, and just the weather was a little bit claggy, and just immediately the RT's mirrors do clag up. So. But the GS is a bike you very quickly feel at home on. So as always with these rides, I'm riding somebody else's bike. Interestingly, the XS on today's ride was £1,500. On the R9, I think it was £250. So whether that had something to do with the fact that it was a service, I'm not sure, or a lesser value bike, I don't know. Maybe somebody can answer that question. But certainly on somebody else's bike, you know, you don't want to drop it there. It would be impolite, wouldn't it? So yeah, just need just probably 5 or 10 minutes just to sort of settle on the bike and just get the feel of it, not being a GS owner myself. I can use these shadows to cross the road here, just let me know if anybody's coming out of any of these driveways. Okay, so we're still in the 30. So you can obviously see down here the TFT massive display. The TFT is the same as on the GS Adventure I rode. I reviewed about 6 months ago. So it's a huge. It almost looks like an iPad actually. You know, it's got that level of clarity. And you know, the colour as well is superb on it, and it integrates very well with the sat-nav 6 that I've got, which I've fitted my own onto the bike today. Alright, just a chance just to open her up a bit now. So it feels, if memory serves me correctly, certainly smoother than the 1200 engine. Less vibey. We'll get it on some faster A roads later on, just a bit of a chance to open her up, but yeah, I mean, there's no doubt at all it does feel smoother. I mean, significantly smoother than the 2016 1200 engine on my RT. So that will be a step change if anybody's thinking up from moving from a 2016 or older model of RT or GS to one of these. You're always very conscious on the GS of sort of sitting in a very high position. I mean, here I'm pulling 60 in 6th on the RT engine at this speed. It's okay, it's an overdrive, but I wouldn't want to be in 6th at this speed on my RT. I'd probably be more comfortable in 5th because of the flexibility. So I can immediately feel the difference in flexibility at 6th. You know, so there, if I sort of, there's nobody behind me, if I sort of drop it down to, let's say, 40, and then pick up. Yeah, it's definitely smooth. I mean, you still know it's a twin, you still know it's a big twin, but it is definitely, most definitely smoother, no doubt about it. And like a lot of these new models now, this has the quick shifter. The acid test, of course, is when you go down from 2nd into 1st, when you're pulling up at a roundabout or a junction, isn't it? We know it works very well in these sort of conditions, you know, anything sort of 3rd gear and above. And the bad news today is that the Wollaston's cafe is closed, so no sausage and egg butty. Today was the first frosty morning in the UK. Certainly where I live anyway. And into the 30. So we're carving through rural Northamptonshire, which is always just a tricky little junction here, because you go around this corner, there's often a car just around the corner, and there it is, a white van today. So no view, so you've got to take it at walking pace. And again, there's just a tricky little right-hand junction here. Okay, nice to get Josh's bike through that safely. I'm sure he'll be relieved. It feels, I think, as an RT owner, it's interesting that the GS, you sort of feel like you're riding a bike on stilts somehow. until you get used to it. And then when I get back on the GS again afterwards, I always feel like my backside's sort of scraping on the road, really, because it seems to be so low. But interesting what Josh was saying, that the sort of strategy that BMW have adopted with this bike, apparently as with the majority of their new models, is it's evolution, not revolution. They've got a winning formula. So what they tend to do is they tweak it, and with the 1250, that tweaking I think is giving you something in the order of an extra 20 horsepower and a better spread of power through the rev range. Okay, so it's going to pull better in high gears. It's going to be more forgiving. Right, concentrate on your corners, Neil. Just moored it. One of the advantages, of course, with the RT is the weather protection. You know, so I think because I'm an all-year-round rider, and because I'm obviously a gentleman of a certain age as well, I just appreciate, I think, the wider seat, the heated seat, the greater protection for legs and sort of upper body as well that the fairing actually provides. I don't know whether most of you GS riders actually put them away in the winter, or whether you keep going. I imagine some of you keep going, but some of you, I guess, will put them away. And it'll be very interesting to actually compare this with the XR a little bit later on, because essentially, I mean, probably there are a few differences, technical differences, but essentially what BMW will have done, as you know, is to take that 4-cylinder engine out of the S1000 and stick it into, in effect, what is a GS frame with a few tweaks. Well, the bike can follow a bit behind there. But of course, it's a super bike in an adventure frame. Nice little curves here. So yeah, today it's I suppose the reason for me taking this bike out is I'm not in the market for a GS. I won't buy a GS. But I'm curious about the S1000XR, how different it feels. Does it put a bigger grin on your face, I guess? But also, I suppose my main reason is that, you know, thinking ahead, at some point I'll probably want to trade up the RT for the 1250. The extra little bit of power, and of course the fact that it's a new model. So for me, the comparison is all. So this feels very much like the GS Adventure. Obviously, the engine does give you that extra little bit of sort of smoothness. You can feel that, and these BMW bikes are always beautifully engineered. And what I've actually come to realise as well is that, you know, with the BMW experience, you get a tremendous service as well.
I didn't buy my bike from Wollaston's, but I've had absolutely top class A1 support and service from them with the servicing of my bike, with a little repair I needed to get done on a mirror, but also with test rides as well. Test rides not a problem. Okay, so heading south on a fine autumn day, crisp autumn day, on the new 1250 GS exclusive edition. It's interesting. I suppose the reason I'm not saying very much about it today is it obviously feels very much like the previous GS, but obviously with a different engine in it. Okay. A bit of acceleration there. Now to me that definitely felt smoother, there's no doubt about it. There is more power there, even for someone like myself to notice that. So the power's there and the smoothness is there. There's no doubt about it, more power. So again, those of you carrying two up with a lot of luggage, you'll appreciate that. Riding through the Alps or wherever, you'll definitely feel a difference. The whole package just feels more refined actually. And of course, as well as that, the rest of the bike is proven, isn't it? Lovely through the curves, very easy. Just look where you want to go and it goes. It's still quite strange for me actually. It's almost like the outer body experience, having now, you know, I'm now sort of officially can call myself an advanced rider, although actually no, I'm not. I've still got a lot to learn about handling and so forth, because I still lack the muscle memory, having been back on the bike actually less than a year, slightly less than a year. But at the same time, I'm on a new bike as well. It's a new bike, and it's just you just need time for everything to sort of settle down, don't you? And you're sort of thinking and your comfort on the machine. I think if I wasn't doing a review today, if I was just doing what I normally do at the moment, which is to actually commentate every ride, in the sense of what I can see and what I'm going to do about it, then it would be a lot smoother, I think. But anyway, nice day to be out on a brand new model. And I found that all these experiences riding different bikes actually do build up my experience. Build up my feel and actually improve my riding of the RT as well. So yeah, so we're sort of 3/4 of the way through the ride now, and I've got to say the engine unit on the 1250 is certainly smoother, certainly more flexible. There's such a wide, I think, spread of power now as well. Playing around with the revs here really. You get sometimes when you're sort of in 60, sort of 50, 60 and you accelerate in 6 on the sort of standard 1200 model, you accelerate and you get that sort of chugging feel, don't you? Again, because it's a big twin. You don't get that on. Well, you sort of know it's there, but it's certainly very, very well suppressed now. And Josh mentioned about this machine, the exclusive version. I don't know whether this is on some of the other versions as well, but it has like an auto suspension setup, which essentially weighs you and works out what's the optimum setting for the suspension settings. So again, it's one less thing to think about, unless you like tinkering around with settings. But as I say, for me, the purpose of this ride essentially is to baseline this new power unit, because I'm more interested in the RT, but also in terms of sort of feedback, kinesthetic feedback, physical feedback, to sort of retain that sort of muscle memory of the feel of this unit, to compare it against the S1000XR. And I think the fact I've ridden this first as well, with the sort of taller frame, of course, that you get on the the GS will probably just help me just to let's say acclimatise for the S1000. Of course, the other discussion point now is that with the extra 20 horsepower or so on the 1250, I think that gets it within sort of 20-25 horsepower of the S1000XR. What difference does that make in the hands of a capable rider, taking it around the twisties and so forth? So yeah, what's the air gap now then between the 1250 GS and the S1000XR? Again, they are two quite different bikes, aren't they? But does that bring them closer together? So here she is. A bit mucky today, but Josh has been enjoying himself in Wales over the weekend. I always think the GS looks a bit better with a little bit of mud, so you can actually see the particular paint scheme here on the exclusive. Okay, so a little bit extra sort of shininess and extra decals and so forth. Just a little cut above the TE version, as I understand it. And as everybody points out, you've probably seen these videos already. You've got this distinctive protection here on the outside of the cylinder casing. Okay, which marks the shift cam version. But apart from that, as I say, very much an evolution, not a revolution from BMW. They've got a winning formula, and it's obviously proven itself already, because they, as I say, they are indeed selling like hotcakes. Okay, so I've got my sat nav attached as well. Mike's just switched itself off, but if you're interested in the actual display, I did a bit of a review of the display on my GS Adventure version. It's exactly the same, so I'm not going to repeat that one today. Okay, so you've got various modes as well. As I understand it, you've got in terms of different riding modes and different an extra choice of suspension modes. I think that's been added to a little bit, but again, I'm not going to go into that because that's not the purpose of today's ride, really. So, okay, so I think that's enough. I've had a quick look around the bike, got some impressions of it. Let's get back, grab a brew, and then get out on the S1000XR. One thing I didn't mention on the bike is that Josh has got this set on the tall setting, and I'm just under 6'1". Gotta say, it feels slightly uncomfortable for me. I probably like a bike that's just a little bit lower. I sort of feel as though I'm on tippy toes a bit, and I think with the GS being tall, I think I might be concerned that I might tip it over. I obviously don't want to do that. But again, as with the GS, you know, seat heights, and you can get I think a low chassis version as well, can't you? So there are plenty of options to actually tailor make a bike to your particular specification. But I'm sure they're going to sell a lot of these to the GS aficionados. Back to Wollaston's.